Hello people. Hi, it's me editing. My last video has like over 300 views now, which is pretty crazy. I didn't expect it to blow up that much. I just want to thank everybody who decided to click on my video. Also, huge thanks to everyone that subscribed to me. You guys are awesome. I'm doing a tier list today. Very original. So I've heard people talk about GD game modes and how they work within the game, but I haven't really seen people rank them, at least not on YouTube, so I'm going to be doing that in a tier list. I also put in some other GD mechanics that I think are important to the game that no one ever really talks about. Let's get started. First off, we have the cube. This is obviously like the game mode that defines the game. Apparently this is called the icon officially, I think. I just wonder why we as a community decided to name it the cube when it's like obviously a square. But anyway, I think this game mode's pretty fun. You can do a lot with it. I'll give it A, I think. Next up we have the ship. This is one of the harder game modes for sure. It was also one of the OGs that was in there like from the very beginning, but it can be a lot more annoying than the cube. I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's like C, D tier because it is important, but it can be annoying. It's definitely not as good as the cube, so I think it should go in B. Next up is ball. This game mode is honestly like pretty boring. You're kind of just like going up and down. The animation does look pretty cool with like the ball spinning and reversing its spin every time you change gravity, but overall it's not super fun to play. I wouldn't say it's D bad, but I think I'll give it C. It's definitely not as important as the ship, I don't think. Next is the UFO. This game mode's obviously inspired by Flappy Bird, hence all those terrible map pack levels. It can get kind of annoying because you can't really correct yourself if you make a mistake. Basically you just do one jump and if it's wrong you die. But I do kind of like playing UFO sometimes. Sometimes it's done tastefully. I wouldn't say it's that bad. I think I'll put it in C with the ball. Next up is the wave. I'm pretty bad at wave, but I actually think it's really fun. Oh my god, I can't think right now. The wave is also pretty important to the game. People really work at it. It's one of those skills that you really need to be a top player is to be good at wave. There's more variety than the ship, and also, in my opinion, it's the most aesthetically pleasing one, just because of the trail. The way it only moves at 45-degree angles, and the trail behind it makes all these like shapes that can be very varied. I honestly think that this belongs in S, even though I'm not great at wave. It's a really good game mode objectively. Next up is the robot. I think it's more varied than the cube just because there's different heights at which you can jump. There are some levels that use the robot pretty tastefully. Sometimes it can be annoying though if you have to do a lot of like small jumps. But I think it actually is more diverse than the ship and cube. But I still don't think it's quite S tier or even A tier just because it's not that fun of a game mode and it's not that important to the game, I don't think. There's plenty of levels that don't have robot and they don't, suffer from lack of robot. I think I'll put it in B with the ship. Next up we got the spider, introduced in 2.1, which I'm still not used to even though I literally started playing in 2.1. This is kind of similar to the ball, it just like goes up and down, but I think the animation looks a lot better. It's a lot more satisfying to play because you're going like straight up instead of at an angle, and so it looks a lot more aesthetic. It's so similar to the ball that like I'm hesitant to put it any higher, but I don't think it's terrible. A lot of people don't love the spider, but I actually think it's a better game mode than the ball. I'm gonna put it like top C tier. If I can figure out how to do it. Jesus. Okay, here we go. And then we have the swing copter, which is not officially in the game, obviously. It's supposed to come out with 2.2. We as a community have recreated it just by using like a dual ball and hiding the top. I haven't really played any swing copter apart from that one part in DOE 3. A lot of people are saying that it's not a good game mode. And I kind of agree actually, but at the same time I'm thinking like how much more can you really do? How many more game modes can Rob Top come up with? I don't think it's that bad though. I don't think it's D tier worthy. I know there's nothing in D yet, but trust me, we'll get there. I think I'll put it in low C tier, below everything else. Okay, now for the other mechanics apart from the game modes. First up we got the block. This is obviously essential to the game. This is what makes levels not just be straight lines across the screen. There are lots of different kinds of blocks that people can use to decorate their levels, although nowadays people use kind of different methods and custom objects to make aesthetic looking levels. I think I'll put blocks in A because they are a huge part of the game and they are what make levels levels. Next up we got spikes. Now we have slopes. I think slopes are pretty interesting. They give the cube and other game modes a lot more dynamicism. I don't even know if that's a word, but you know what I mean. Sometimes they can be annoying though, because sometimes you have to click on them and it's very inconsistent at what point you should click and how high you're supposed to be jumping. I think some levels use them really tastefully though. I think Dance Massacre is a good example of that. I think I'll put slopes up in B with ship and robot because I do think they're pretty important. I wouldn't say they're better though, or more. Actually, it's probably gonna go above the robot because, you know, robot's not super important. Next up we have jump pads. I think jump pads add a lot of variety to the game just because they add parts where you like jump and don't actually have to click. Jump pads are literally what make auto levels. They're the reason auto levels exist. And I think that's kind of like a decently big part of Geometry Dash culture is auto levels. But I don't think they're necessarily that important. I think I'll put it in C. Next up we got jump orbs. I actually think these are pretty important. They were introduced pretty early on. There are a bunch of different types too, which adds a lot of variety to the game. They add a lot of aesthetic value to the game as well, into levels, and I think without them gameplay would be a lot more boring. I actually think they're S tier worthy. They're up there with the wave. They're super duper important to me. Next up we got dash orbs, which were introduced in 2.1. I also really like these. I think these are important. They add a lot of variety to gameplay, especially because you have to hold them down, and a mechanic like that wasn't really introduced before 2.1. I'm not really sure if I should put them in A or B because I don't think they're more important than the ship necessarily. I think I'll put them here with the slopes. Next up we got speed portals. I only put the 2x here, but I'm talking about all speed portals here. I think speed portals are crucial to the game. They make levels a lot more interesting to look at and a lot more fun to play. All the levels I played before Electrodynamics, which I think was the first 1.8 level I played, I just thought the pacing was just kind of boring in all those levels. And so I think speed portals changed that for the better. I think I'll put them in S. And I guess I'll put them above jump orbs because actually, I don't know. I have no idea. Okay, I'll just put him here. Next we have 4x speed, and I put this as a separate category just because this was added in 2.1 and it was kind of a big like transition for the community. People started using 4x speed in like every single drop at first and people were annoyed by it. I would have been too, but I wasn't playing at the time. I don't think the game really needs 4x speed. We could do with just 3 times, but if it's used tastefully, it can be really good. I'll put it like below all these game modes and see. Next up we have move triggers or moving objects. I think these are very important for the way levels started looking in 2.0, for the way creators started experimenting with more complex art styles and more complex gameplay. Moving objects, like with 4x speed, were overused a lot in the beginning, from what I can remember from, you know, playing GD for 2 years and watching videos. Overall, I think they have more upsides than downsides, and I'll put them in A because, yeah, they're important and they really revolutionized the way levels started to look. And the last thing I have is keys/switches, which is basically like, you know, getting something to unlock something later on in a level. Again, the game could do without it, but it can be a good thing, especially for theming in levels. I would say that just because they're not that important, I'll put them in C tier above everything else. Okay, I kind of want to go back and like move things around here because it's looking a bit uneven. So I think I'm going to move the ship up to A because now that I'm thinking about it, the ship is more important than like move triggers. And I think it deserves to be up here, honestly. Like, people always talk about hardship challenges, straight flying, etc. And I think I'll move the UFO up to B after the robot because it is more fun than I gave it credit for in the beginning, maybe. And I think I'll put jump pads in B too, because they were also introduced really early on, and I feel like we can't really imagine the game without them. I'll put them above dash orbs even. And I feel like I should put something else in D tier, but spikes are really the only bad thing about this game. But then again, they make this game. If you don't have spikes, you can't die. So it's put there with love. I actually think I'll put Swingcopter in D tier too, because I kind of don't really know a lot about it and I haven't really played it much. So it's not really comparable to the rest of them. I just threw it in there because, you know, 2.2 is supposed to come out soon, although who knows if that's actually gonna happen. So yeah, that looks pretty good. It's pretty even. Look at that. So yeah, that was my tier list. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!